Yeah, with this segment, it definitely feels like people and love. People over here, and love is way over here.
It's definitely not. It's like the opposite of what this segment's supposed to be about. It's about like
It is the realities of
Yeah.
people when it comes to love. I mean, that's just what it is today.
So this news article is kind of going viral. There's a little news segment that came out on CBS Morning, I think, and like we played this live on Black Power Magic Hour before. This has been a story that's been brewing for a while, and we tried to play the Jimmy Kimmel segment. He went out on the street and asked people if they were having more sex or less sex, and people, you find out on your own. We don't want to get banned again talking about it. No, please don't sue us, NBC, whatever. So we're gonna do it ourselves. And so pretty much what's happening is like, people thought it was going to be a huge baby boom because everyone's home with their partners, stuck at home in quarantine for the past year. But in reality, birth rates have continued to fall. So pretty much what's happening is that people thought it's going to be a baby boom. It's actually a baby bust. And this is in the context of like actually numbers have been going down for a while, since like 2007. And the pandemic is kind of just like, just look at that.
Yeah. The assumption was that, people who are in relationships, at least, that they were going to be stuck in a domicile together and not have a whole lot to do besides literally Netflix and chill. Yeah. So it's not bearing out in the numbers though. In other mass catastrophes, global planetary catastrophes, you would see that those things would give rise to growth in the birth department. But in our modern society, for a whole host of reasons, most of which we will not discuss here.
I want to share the CBS. Yeah, I want to share the CBS clip that everyone was talking about. Pretty much share this. So I'm gonna play this clip. It's a long one, but we can talk over it. But it's pretty good. It has,
especially since they want to give us a fucking commercial.
Yeah.
Good God.
Get Optimum online. It's $35 a year, and then it's going to be $150 a month.
For even faster connections, all from the internet provider.
Yeah.
It's going to cut off sometimes.
Hop the fuck off my TV.
Internet from Optimum for only $35.
You know you're not offering that shit.
You still want to?
If I called you out right now for that shit, you would tell me to go fuck myself. So go fuck yourself. And that's people in love.
As we approach one full year of COVID restrictions, there's new data.
So this is the viral segment I was talking about.
That some doctors and, for that matter, comedians expected is actually turning out to be a major baby bust. Health departments in 27 states provided records to CBSNews.com, and they show a 7% drop in births in December. That
I guess people in New York State are still fucking.
Lockdowns began, and it could be just the beginning. Researchers say it matches a much bigger plunge in fertility that is decades in the making. The number of babies the average woman is expected to deliver in her lifetime has dropped from nearly 4 in the 1950s to less than 2 today.
When I saw this, I was like, I thought of Children of Men right away. I was like, oh my God, it's scary. It looked like a scary chart right there.
Some people think it's a good thing.
Are far greater than any other we have ever fought.
Right, humans are scourge of the planet.
In the 1960s and 70s, an
they feel like, especially they think that it's a victory for feminism. Women don't have to be wives or mothers or anything like that. They can go off and live the life that they want to live, and that's a sign of progress that women are not having children.
Sometime in the next 15 years, the end will come, and by the end, I mean an utter breakdown of the capacity of the planet to support humanity.
But these days.
Yep, that same guy.
A very different.
He's like, I overshot.
Like USC professor Dow Myers, who studies demographic trends.
The trouble is that we overshot. We dropped it down too much now.
While the global population is still growing, a major study last summer predicted it'll actually peak in 2064 and then fall by nearly a billion people by the end of the century. The reason? Fewer babies. Here in the U.S., in fact, we're already below the so-called replacement level by some measures, and that means fewer young people to support our otherwise aging population.
that's a crisis. We need to have enough.
We're going to be all old, and no one's going to take care of us.
Carry the load.
No, we're all going to be working at McDonald's at age 99.
All their entitlements,
and people are going to be cheering it.
About another 30 years. Nobody in the history of the globe has had so many.
It all goes full circle in Black Power Magic Hour.
And the pandemic is only making this problem worse, despite some early jokes that more families staying home together might mean more babies.
And we thought, oh, we would see a baby boom, but we just haven't seen it.
Dr. David Jaspin is chair of the Department of Gynecology and Obstetrics at Einstein Medical Center in Philadelphia. He says patients are worried about not only their health,
spends more time cleaning cobwebs out of there than anything else.
People ask you about contraception, and fewer people
Just
say,
life.
we're thinking about trying.
That's absolutely true. I get a report every morning at 5:15 about what has happened in the last 24 hours. And the first report that I see is the number of deliveries in the last 24 hours. It's less than it used to be.
The question now is, how low will it go? The Brookings Institution has predicted a large, lasting baby bust of at least 300,000 fewer children in 2021.
We are on the precipice, at the very least, of not having enough
children. You don't have a mask on,
to
you got to
replace
scan
our
the snow,
population.
buddy.
And so what? I mean,
well, that's the interesting
question.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Laura Lindbergh tracks reproductive data for the Guttmacher Institute. And while she's also seeing the baby bust, she views it as a sign of progress, a marker of women's equality and freedom of choice.
so it's a
What did I
shift
tell
to
you?
later in life. In that shift comes more education, more career, more employment. So it's a reordering of how people engage in adulthood.
Dal Myers doesn't disagree, but in the bigger picture, he worries our declining birth rate is also a barometer of despair.
It also leaves
In
out the fact women have to
1978, when you were
work
breaking into the
5
field,
jobs too.
Did you ever think
So,
in
I
your
don't know, I mean,
lifetime?
we have time to
you'd
have
be
Some of the
talking
women
about a
prefer to work a
declining
bunch of
birth
jobs
rate
because they're strong and independent
what
and don't
changed?
need no man.
The burdens of
So
life,
they look at
The
that as a
cost of
badge of
housing.
honor.
the cost of education, all these things have become more and more difficult. I think the boomers themselves don't realize it, how much harder it is for millennials today. And they think, oh, yeah, when we were young, we had to live, on very little money, and we made do. And
How much was it? 25.
That's the story, right?
$25.02. How much was it?
25.17.
Amazing how much harder it is.
$25.17.
See how I slipped in that
Little bit of money.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to talk about what he said at the end.
It's a very
Yeah,
important
Because-
it's away from
Yeah,
like,
so on one hand, it is
everyone's the apocalypse is happening. All
Yeah,
right.
so I want to talk about that last part because
Yeah.
the chances that you and I are going to come to some sort of understanding on some of those other factors, probably not likely. But I want to talk about that last part because I think that is something that we'll both definitely relate to on some level. It's nice to hear a boomer or somebody that looks old enough to be a boomer say that, people from his generation are always making the claim that, look at how little money we made and look at what we were able to do on such little money. And it's like, God, you guys just don't know what people, born after 1980, what they have to deal with from an economic standpoint. You might say that, oh yeah, I had to work full time and I was able to put my kids, my 7 kids through school. Well, there are people who were having children, 80 years ago who are trying to put themselves through school now.
Yeah.
At that same point in life. The people, 80 years ago, they inherited a house. We inherit debt. There's really nothing, we especially for people like me and Messiah, we had to come up from less than nothing to try to get to zero at a time where people used to start families, right?
Yeah.
So, not only is life extra difficult for the millennial, but you can also say that because we live in the information age, people our age and younger are starting to count the cost of what it takes to live and survive. So
plus one person, plus one little person,
we haven't even gotten there yet. We're talking about people that look and say, well, it takes this much to be able to pay my rent. I'm going to live with a roommate, right? So imagine you have a roommate Do you feel comfortable fucking in a place where it's not even your own, that you're renting with somebody else?
Getting pregnant and having kids in the room.
Yeah, that's embarrassing, right? You don't even have a space to call your own. You know, you know, you can say what you want about the equality, the gender equality movement, but what it did was it flooded the market with a bunch of talent. And what that does is it makes it an employer's market. So if you want to get ahead, you're going to have to spend a lot of time on your work. How much time do you have to spend on looking for a mate, courting a mate, building a bond with that mate, building an environment that you could bring a child into with that mate?
Yeah,
if you look at all of these things, people are looking at it and say, well, I barely have enough freedom to breathe when I get off the clock. You know what? I just want to be by myself. I don't want to deal with nobody. I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to hear any fucking screaming kids. Fuck it. No kids.
And also think about the age range. Like think about, if you want to have, let's say you want to have kids in your early 20s. At the time, early 20s, I guess, per se, hypothetically, you're getting out of school or you're working.
You have no buying power. How are you going to take care of that kid?
20s, early 20s. Like, okay, early 20s, you missed that boat. Okay.
Yep.
Late 30s. Oh, you're establishing. Now you're actually starting to establish your career and you have to make real, like, fork in the road decisions. Like, okay.
Yeah, but your eggs are turning into dust.
Yeah. So it's like, okay. And then your 40s is like, oh, okay, everything's settled, but okay.
Now you're the rich auntie now at that point.
It's like, so it's like,
you know, it's over for you at that point.
Yeah.
You don't have any options.
Yeah. I mean, you feel like you're gonna be like the lonely person in a big house somewhere, you know.
Yep. Absolutely. And you know, it just doesn't seem like people. It doesn't seem like people in the age group ahead of us and ahead of them, they don't understand what it is like to live in the modern world. And it doesn't even really feel like they care, because I think were we just talking about this recently?
Come on, boomers.
Yeah, boomers and generation, I think it was Generation X, right?
Gen X, kind of, sort of, but
right. Yeah, so I'm saying like the generation before us and then the ones before them.
Yeah.
I think we were talking recently about how, you know, people don't care about the environment because they're like, well, as long as I got rich, the world is going the world is going to be able to support human life as long as I'm living. So that I'm the only one that I care about. So if we destroy the environment, who gives a fuck, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the same thing with the economic system. You know, boomers took full advantage of it. They had, you know, post-war, they had all the advantages, all the houses that were built, all of the economic opportunities. They were able to enjoy their baby boom. And then they fucked up the economy and then left us with a fucked up economy. They left us with a fucked up environment. And then they look at us like, hey, you know, look at the bootstraps we pulled up. You cut the fucking laces on the boots. How are we supposed to do that?
You just hear like the stories, really nearly stories of going to the bank and getting the loan, like a big ass loan, you know?
Yeah. And you know, and the only thing that they had to do was say, yo, yeah, they was like, yo, my pastor says I'm good for it.
Yeah.
And that was all they had to do. Like, it was, you know what's fucked up? You know what's fucked up?
You need a blood test. You need tax returns for the next 4 years. You need.
But the thing is, our tax system, not the tax system, our credit check system. I thought that was just always a thing. I only found out recently that started in the 80s after I was born.
Like you said, that James, back in the day, like, oh, my pastor and like my uncle knows I'm good for it. Like, here's $200,000. You know, like, start your business. You know, it's like, you know, if you're like, you know, if you're white, even more like express shop.
And then we got to listen to Trump. Yeah, doesn't everybody have access to a small $1 million loan?
Yeah, you know, because you were white, you were able to walk in, you had the capital to show it, prove it somehow. You're able to go in there and get your loans. You know, black people had to put up a fight, but they're able to do the same thing in some ways. You know, but like, you know, now it's like you need,
you know, 850 credit. Or go fuck yourself.
Yeah, like you need 850 credit to get like a little 1350 apartment in Brownsville. You know, it's like,
I mean, since the pandemic started, the average credit rating has risen to 710. I remember seeing the first number 7 and throwing a fucking party inside my head. Oh my God, I made it to 700. Right? because that was supposed to be like, that used to be the standard. I don't know, maybe just for us niggas, but 700 is like, oh my God, they got a 700 credit rating. The girl is the girl, if you meet a girl and she finds out you have a 700 credit rating, she's ready to give you some sloppy toppy. Like that used to be what we celebrated. Now the average in the country, the average is 710 during a pandemic.
I felt so,
and we still can't get loans in good credit terms. It's crazy. Yeah.
So then it's not about the credit score at the end of the day.
So now we start getting into another kind of conversation, don't we?
Yes, that's that's Black Power Magic Hour, Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. Follow us on act.tv. Hopefully they don't ban this People in Love segment again. So they've been going after the People in Love segments, YouTube and Facebook. But Dr. Eva Genius, follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. He's streaming there all the time. So that's People in Love. That's people not in love.